was born ready. How you doing?
Pretty good.
How are you
ready?
doing? How are you doing, listeners? I am sitting here, if you are only listening through audio, I'm sitting here with my fall mug, which is candy corn men dressed up in their Halloween costumes. And I have a cute little pumpkin. Isn't that cute? Which Eddie pointed out, he said the stem is unusually long. That is quite the stem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you are only listening to us, we are very festive over here today. I love fall. I love this time of year. The weather starts getting cooler. For some reason, the sunsets too just seem to be so amazing. Mackenzie grabbed the keys last night. This is so weird that she's driving now. Right after dinner, we had just finished up a nice little spaghetti dinner. And she's like, oh my gosh, look at the sky. Mom, I need to drive over to the wetlands because we live like 800 yards away from the wetlands here in Huntington Beach. I need to drive over there. I have to get a picture. I was like, that's my girl right there. So yes, we are enjoying all things fall. I hope you are too, wherever you are listening in, around the world, across the country. I hope that in the month of October, you are able to get outside at least once and enjoy a fall sunset. And whether that's a walk with the family, a run, or just pulling the car over like my daughter did last night to watch that sunset, I hope that you can do that because sometimes those little special moments in your day are just like little gifts. That's what I think of the sunset.
Little gifts.
It's like a little gift, a little reminder that you got to live another day. Now, currently, I'm just going to warn you guys before we really dive into this episode, we are babysitting mother-in-law's little dog. So our little dog, Bear, is running around. Our dog's a little 8-pounder. And then we have Daisy. So if you hear some barking in the back or some growling because they're playing around, that's what that is. And we may or may not stop the podcast because all of you dog owners know, your dogs bark and do all the crazy things when you least expect it. So welcome to our home. And wherever you're tuning in, if you are on a run, well done. If you're on a walk, on a hike, if you're on a piece of gym equipment, we are just so grateful that you have tuned in with us. If you're on your commute for the day, whether that's going to work or coming home, we are totally stoked that you have decided to join us at our table with our cup of coffee. And are you drinking Gatorade?
I have Gatorade. Yeah.
Where did you even get that? I do not buy Gatorade.
I saw it in the fridge and I said, you know what?
Oh, you know what that's
that
from?
Good.
That's leftover from Mackenzie's cross-country meet.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
You were in charge of bringing home the cooler, the leftovers.
There was a couple left, yeah.
And
right.
somehow those Gatorades made their way into our fridge.
Yep. I was thinking about running a little bit later. Is it good to drink Gatorade before?
I am not endorsing Gatorade.
Okay.
They get an L from me. I do, however, like BPN's lemon lime electrolytes. Those are quite delicious. Mackenzie puts those in her water bottle every single day.
She does.
Yeah. Well, this is our 13th episode, and we just did a post celebrating 100,000 downloads in 12 episodes. It has been less than a year since we rolled out the Choose Strong podcast, and I did a post of appreciation. As much as Eddie doesn't like it, Eddie is the reason why this podcast exists. And I think I saw a comment recently. You said, all I do is hit record. No, that is not true. I know very little about audio production, soundboards, and he set up some padding in this room. And we set up our room too, so everything sounds good. But he has really been the backbone of this podcast. So it was really fun to celebrate him. But I must make a note too, because it doesn't matter how many episodes Eddie and I do together. He's always like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be in on the next one. I think I'm good. I'm good just editing. I'm good producing. And I'm like, no, you literally have a fan base. And it was so awesome to see all the comments on this post that I did this morning celebrating the 100,000 and so many people celebrating you too and saying thank you and saying how much they enjoy what you add to this podcast. So
I think they were saying thank you for getting it up and running for Sally to finally have her own podcast. That's what they were saying. They just didn't want to be mean about it.
You're a strong voice on this podcast. You are here to stay.
All right. Speaking of, I'm going to share a couple more reviews.
Mm-hmm. Which we love reading.
Yeah,
we so look forward to these. So thank you for those of you that have written them.
All right. This one's from Subob93.
I like that name.
Yeah, it's good. I absolutely love this podcast. I get so excited every time a new episode's released. I want to listen to it right away, but I always save it for my long run. It makes me look forward to my long run even more. Thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable. You are both such an inspiration. Thank you, Subob.
Thank you, Subob.
This one is so far probably my favorite ever. This is by Roxy Singh. She said, awesome, inspiring, fabulous, amazing, and that's just Eddie. Can we just pause?
Yes,
right
see,
there?
We're in the middle of celebrating you anyway. So yes, I'm so glad that someone else sees that as well.
Fabulous and amazing.
I don't know if anyone has ever described you as fabulous in all the years that I have known you.
That was the first.
So there's the first.
Then she said, love you both. Truth bombs, insights, love, fun. This podcast has it all. You make me choose strong always, Sally.
I love that.
That was a good one. By far my favorite. All right, last one by Gussie. My core gets worked. Listen to y'all. I'm a mountain bike racer who occasionally pretends to be an ultra runner. Great content with good takeaway points. The humor is awesome. The diesel story almost made me pull my vehicle over. I was laughing so hard. You must conclude each podcast with a story.
I love it. Well, we do like to tell stories. I'll tell you what, Eddie and I have a lot of stories together over the years. We met when we were 18 as soccer players in college, and we've done a ton of traveling around the world together. Even before we were married, we have quite a few stories. So that diesel story will go down though as one of my favorites. And Eddie, I kind of feel like that was like in the top 3 things that people remembered from that podcast.
Yeah.
Now, when we were going through it, it's a story that Eddie did not want to share. But I was like, no, we have to share this story. So thank you for that feedback, you guys. And
yes.
Just really quick, thank you for those that have become sponsors of the podcast. We so appreciate that. We saw that we picked up a handful of new sponsors, and that really means a lot to us. If you are interested in gaining overall physical and mental strength, not only in your particular sport, I do have a run and strength app, the Sally McRae app, which is in the show notes. You can always find it in my profile. I know some people have been downloading the Playbook app. I do ask that you download from my link. But we just want to say thank you so much for those of you that have done that. You can try out the app for free for 7 days. You can also become a yearly subscriber, which comes out to about $8 a month. Or you can just subscribe monthly at $14.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. There's no contracts or anything. But one of the things that I haven't highlighted enough about my app is that you actually have access to hundreds of other trainers within the app. So if you're interested in adding, let's say, yoga or Pilates to your routine, there's a lot of that in the app. If you want to know more about recovery, sleep, nutrition, all of those features are in the app. And of course, we're adding more stuff to the app every single week, whether it's in the form of mobility routines, stretching routines, running, strength routines. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what I have going on next now that the Choose Strong project is over, but it does have to do with the app. So make sure you check that out, but also know that those of you that are subscribers to the app do support what Eddie and I do in our work. So putting out podcast content, putting out content just even within the app. We just want to say thank you so much. Let's go ahead and dive into the conclusion, the surprising close of the Choose Strong project. And I'm really excited just to get into the nitty-gritty of this attempt. For those of you that are unaware of what we have been doing in the last, it hasn't even been 2 weeks since we've done this, but I did a double summit on Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the lower 48 states, starting from Lone Pine, California, which is the very, very bottom. So if you stand on Main Street in Lone Pine, you can look up and see Mount Whitney, and that is 23 miles away. So I did a double summit, which came out to roughly 92 miles, a little bit more than 22,000 feet of climbing. And so we are going to talk about that attempt, why I chose that, the training that went into that. And really, the most important part was the story that parallels with it. And I'd like to say, for especially our new listeners, although I do use running as a parallel to life, it's something I do talk about a lot. This isn't really just a running podcast. And our hope always is that whatever we share throughout the podcast, that it encourages you in your everyday life, in whatever season you're in, whatever dream you're working toward, or whatever challenge that might be before you. That is why we share these stories. And so the project took a very quick turn. Originally, I had shared that the project was 6 races. And within those races, every mile represented a month that my mom got to live. Now, my mom passed away at the same age that I am today. So the number of miles came out to 507 miles. So leading up to this double Mount Whitney project, I think I was already at like 407 or I think it was like 430 or something like that. There was also a private little part of this project that we did that you will see in the film, because there is a film that will be coming out about this project and everything that we did. But Eddie and I had at one point run from the house where my mom passed away to her graveside. So that and the double Mount Whitney, those two together made up the concluding miles of this project. So we just kept it was a very a personal time for me as I ran to my mom's graveside. So you will see more of that in the story. But this one in particular, my hope has been that the message that I'm sending to people through this project was more focused on the story and hopefully the hope within the message, far beyond the miles and the races and the medals and the time. That was not the important part of this project. And so as people followed along on this project, I would always share a story, and I would share some insight and share a little bit about my mom. I would share why I chose a particular race and what it represented to me. Each race represented like a certain time period in my mom's life. So having the project take a surprising turn was very much in sync and paralleled my mom's life. And so if you are a subscriber to our newsletter, I detailed that story in our newsletter. And if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, again, I'll put that in the show notes. That's always in my link in my bio on Instagram. You can always find it there. And you are able, once you subscribe, to look at past newsletters too. So basically, as the story goes, I break down how my mom, at having 5 kids in her late 30s, had great dreams and plans for her life. When I set out to do the True Strong project, I had laid out a plan for the project. I had laid out different races that I was going to do. I had a structure. I had goals. I had hopes for how it would pan out. Now, after Switzerland, I had originally planned to go to Puerto Vallarta to run 100 miles, and then we were going to do a half marathon together. Eddie and I were going to do that at the beginning of November. So the double on Mount Whitney summit came as a surprise twist to the community. It came as a surprise twist to everyone. And really, this is how the story goes. When my mom was 39 years old, she also got a surprise twist in her story, and a surprising challenge that she was not planning on doing or encountering. And that was when she met with a doctor And he basically told her, you've had this cancer for a while, and there is nothing that we can do to save you. Like you will die from this. And so when we, as her children, when we all sat down around the dinner table, all 5 kids, and our parents let us know what was going on, it was the first time that we had heard that she had had cancer. We didn't grow up with medical care, and so going to the doctors regularly was not something that we did in our family. So once we had been approved for Medicare, the government health insurance, it was just too late. And so we both had been, our whole family was told she has cancer and there's nothing they can do. So it was a massive shock to all of us. I was 14 at the time. My mom passed away just 4 weeks after I turned 17. So it did go pretty quick. And so this summit was, I wanted to do a double attempt on the summit. And the message was the strength to start again. And everything about that message just really hit home with what it was like living that last month with my mom, and knowing that I had to accept saying goodbye to her, and what that's like for a kid. I mean, that's really difficult. I'd say for many kids, they understand death from movies, from books, from listening to other people. But, to actually be able to understand that in their own life is real is very difficult. And so when we set out to do this attempt, I had a few different ideas about what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, weather and the erosion and flooding that was taking place in Death Valley actually changed my original course. So the Choose Strong project had actually started with a double on the Badwater course, but going all the way up to the top of the summit. So originally it was going to be a 300-mile attempt starting at Furnace Creek. I was going to run from Furnace Creek, the lowest point in the United States, and run all the way to the top of Mount Whitney, and then turn around and run all the way back to Furnace Creek. So that comes out to a little over 290 miles. I want to say it's like 293 miles. So that had always been the plan from the beginning. But the problem was I couldn't secure a permit when I had wanted to. So I had applied, and we only live, 3.5 hours from Mount Whitney. And if you're local, it is a little bit easier to get permits, only because you can go on the same day. So I would check the online permit system every single day. And sometimes you'd see one permit open up, but it was usually only within a few days' notice. So that was part of the problem, was we didn't like scheduling our life around our kids and the film crew and everything with only a few days' notice to do this massive attempt, which would actually put us out in the desert for at least 5 days, was really difficult. So I then pivoted and said, well, I will start with Badwater 135 then, because I knew I was already in that race. And that race and that course is very personal to me. Starting in the desert, which is extremely harsh, and then running toward the mountains, which I love so much. There's a lot of parallels in that. So when, as we got closer to the start of the Choose Strong project, I was approved for a permit in the lottery, but it wasn't until September. So we basically just talked about, well, we can put that into the project as kind of like hidden miles, and we'll make plans for other stuff. And so our last 2 races, like Puerto Vallarta, was actually an invite from UTMB. That was something actually that I still wanted to do no matter what. We just didn't know how my body would be feeling. So, and the same thing with the marathon. Yes, we are still heading out for that half marathon. I think there's a handful of people that actually signed up for it to join us. So we still will be out there for that. But this attempt in the desert going up to Mount Whitney was actually an idea from the start. And it was supposed to represent the hardest part of this project. And that was losing my mom, and me as a 17-year-old kid, kind of finding the strength and the hope to begin again. Because essentially after she was gone, I had to kind of learn how to do life without her. And I'll tell you what, in all transparency, I had a lot of days and seasons where I just didn't want to do life at all. It was just so difficult. And I kind of break this down in my book, which I spent time editing today. But, it took me a long time to kind of grow from that pain. And I really believe that is why this True Strong project was so powerful, because it isn't about, you're in the middle of a challenge, and it isn't overnight that you just feel strong and so amazing. And it isn't so easy to always choose strong. Like sometimes it takes a long time. And sometimes it is a struggle, and you feel like you're just limping every single step and you don't feel strong. And so it's really about the mindset, choosing to move forward even when you physically don't feel it. So as we got closer to permit time, which was in September, we had just come home from Switzerland, and we knew, okay, we have a 6-day turnaround to go and finish this project. So this is like something no one knew about. And thankfully, we saw that permits popped up like 10 days later after that. So we're like, that'll work way better. The whole camera crew, everyone was so exhausted. And of course, my body is getting more and more tired as this project goes on. And so we were able to secure permits for September 30th. I was able to get 4 because I didn't know if everyone would be climbing to the top with me or not. But I was like, okay, I'll get 4. Then we realized, okay, there's a chance. The goal was to summit twice in under 24 hours, which we did end up doing. But I think the day that we were driving out there, the day before, we were able to get a couple permits for the 29th as well. So we went up on the 29th, came back down right as the permit was ending. And then when the second one started again, we went back up again, and we were able to get that double under the 24 hours. So that is where that project came from. I'd say that, I was a little sad that I couldn't start from Furnace Creek. For those of you who've kind of been keeping up to date with what is going on in Death Valley, there is some massive flash floods that literally ripped up the roads. So many roads in Death Valley right now are impassable. You can't drive on them. You can't go there. After it happened once, I think 3 weeks later, it happened again. And so there is just no way that we could do that route. I know that people are going to ask, do you think you'll ever do that? And yes, it's always in the back of my mind. Maybe one day I will, but I'm very happy, to say the least, with what we did here in Lone Pine. Lone Pine is a place where I've spent many years training for Badwater 135. It is, if you've never been there before, it is, oh my gosh, it's such a cute, quaint little town. The people there are so kind. And a lot of movies have been recorded out in Lone Pine in the Alabama Hills. There are a lot of structures and buildings that have been there, I'd say, for almost 100 years. And I love staying at the Dalvilla Motel. The people and the staff there are so wonderful. But I have often, over the years, spent many weekends away training in Lone Pine, running up and down Mount Whitney Portal Road. Mount Whitney Portal Road is how Badwater ends. Mount Whitney Portal Road is the road that you take to get to the Mount Whitney trailhead. And that road is 12 miles and 5,000 feet of climbing. It's straight up the entire time. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of miles in training that I have spent running up that road. And one of the reasons why I love it is because it's so desolate. It's very quiet. You can hear a pin drop. There is never, ever, ever lots of traffic. So I'm always able to hear a car long before it gets to me. There's good bike lanes on each side, and as well as dirt and trails next to those bike lanes. So I always feel very safe. So I've spent years out there. I've spent years running. I've spent years working on my book, and just staring at that mountain and being in those mountains in the trails surrounding Mount Whitney. It's a very precious place and holds a lot of meaning and great memories for me. And this idea of double summiting from a place where I've spent so much time, I thought was really special. I know that a few people have summited Mount Whitney before from Lone Pine, but that was just going straight up to the top and down. And so doing it twice was something that no one has ever done. But that was also a part of the project as well, because that part just represented the fact that what I was about to do in letting my mom go was something that I had never done. It was something that I didn't know that I could do. And that was something I wrote about in the newsletter. You know, a few months after my mom passed away, I spoke in front of my junior class. And, you know, I remember a lot of students coming up to me after and saying, wow, like, I don't think I could ever lose a parent. Like, there's no way I could lose my mom or lose my dad. And I would listen quietly inside, just hurting so much inside, thinking, yeah, I never thought that either. Nobody plans on it. Nobody knows how to respond or what to feel. But sometimes when you're caught in a situation that you didn't ask for that hurt so bad, or you're caught in a challenge or an unexpected loss or tragedy, you have a choice. And you're either going to sit and complain and be a victim of the world and stay in that pit of despair, or you're going to get up and you're going to keep moving forward. And, you know, as a 17-year-old girl, that took me a long time to stand up and to keep moving forward. That wasn't just overnight, just an easy decision. It was navigating day by day. And many times it was just willing myself to get out of bed in the morning. And so as this project was coming to a close, you know, we had a lot of these conversations, both with the film team and I did with Eddie. And, you know, we were really excited to tell this part of the story with you. And so we just want to thank you before we kind of go into the ins and outs of this route. We want to thank you for all the support. We've gotten just incredible messages and feedback for those of you following the project. And we really hope that it has brought you some encouragement as well. So we are going to go and just kind of chat a little bit about, I'm just going to take a pause about the lead up into this double summit, because we had come back from Switzerland, which was a really difficult race. I was pretty sore after I ran that race. I had collectively, I think, 20 days between the race finish and the double summit start. But, you know, after we finished the race in Switzerland, you know, by the time we got home, I think really my recovery, I did not recover well. If you guys listened to the last podcast, I had a few pretty rough days in Switzerland where my body didn't have like the best recovery. So I'd say as far as where I was able to get some downtime and get into a groove, it was probably only about 2 weeks. And I spent the majority of that time, again, as I've shared in the past, in the gym. So it was a lot of strength training, a lot of mobility work, a lot of sleeping. I did not run very much at all, but I did spend some good time on the stair mill. So doing long efforts on the stair mill and just making sure my body was rested and ready to go. As I've gone on in this project, I haven't been so obsessed with trying to log big long runs, because I know I can go that far. My body's done it over and over again over the course of this project and over the years. I think that's important to point out too, is I've spent many, many years running these long distances. And so just patiently building up a body that is able to endure these miles. Mentally, I had a lot of confidence going in to this double summit. I do have to share, though, that I had never summited Mount Whitney before this project. And that in and of itself made the challenge a little, I don't want to say scary, but just like, wow, like anything could happen, because this hike, it's in and of itself, for those of you that done the hike up Mount Whitney, it's gnarly. Like once you get to a certain point, especially as you're going up the 99 switchbacks and then you hit the backside of Mount Whitney, you're like, wow, I'm really out here. Like I'm in rugged high country out here. Like this is crazy. I had never been above 13,000 feet before either. And so these were all things that the crew didn't really know, except Eddie. My film guys didn't know this until we were actually out on the course, and they were like, what? You've never been to the top and you're going to double summit this thing? I was like, yeah. So that was also part of the challenge for me, is I had a lot of confidence in my fitness and my ability and just my perspective and focus going in. I think my, many years experience of being in the mountains, I knew that would play a really big part as well. So my training was about how rested and strong can I be? How can I begin this feeling really good? And I don't know, Eddie, if you want to add anything about that in that lead up, or how you were feeling. We had a lot going on here at home uh, before we left too, because we had just come back from Switzerland, and our kids are like, "Wait, what? What are you doing now?"
Yeah, that was a quick turnaround for this. Well, the thing was, we didn't have like a lot of details about it. You're just like, I'm gonna go do this, and we're like, well, we gotta kind of plan out a couple guys coming out from Texas,
Tyler and
their
Drew
timing, and so it was very much up in the air, which is kind of hectic.
It was
of the
hectic.
Permits and stuff, but yeah, it was the lead up was a little stressful.
Yeah, the lead up was stressful because, like I said, we didn't even secure the second permit, which was allowing us a little bit more time on the mountain. That's really what we wanted, was just more time on the mountain. And they were flying out here. It was, so we, I think for anyone that is looking to maybe do this attempt, it was pretty fun to put this attempt on the map, or something like this where you're just like, dude, I'm gonna go try something hard. I always think that preparation is key. I'm a big believer in that. I think that it's going to give you confidence. It gives everyone involved comfort. It gives them something to kind of lead on to, especially when things don't go well or things are falling apart. There's a plan in place. So I think we definitely took a risk, but a big part of it was having that confidence from the previous 4 races. You knew how to take care of me. You knew what I needed.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of get more into that as time goes on. The other thing was that, Tyler and Drew, they're younger, and their life is kind of formed around media. I mean, they're filming and doing this photography. That is their job. And so they had a lot of freedom to travel. So we were really grateful for that. Neither of them have families, and they were given BPN, Bear Performance Nutrition. They've been so great. They really gave them that freedom to kind of just hop on a plane when they needed to, when this was going to finish. So there was a lot of moving parts that needed to be flexible, I guess. Like that's ultimately what it was. We all had to be flexible. We all kind of had to grab a hold of the opportunity and know, like, hey, we're tired, body's broken down, but this is the time to do it. And I think, with 2 teenagers at home, both their sports are in full swing. We also, we just had a lot of business things going on, family stuff going on that we were also trying to juggle. And yeah, it was a stressful time. But I feel like our listeners too, they understand this. Like, sometimes there isn't a best time to do something. Sometimes it feels like when something big is happening, it's so easy to say, really? Like, right now, this is the worst time that it could possibly happen. I don't know how many times I've said that in my life, but
selfishly, it was the worst time for me. Okay. Can I just bring that up real quick? I haven't seen, I've seen them, but we haven't hung out in like 20 years. All my friends from college. And so we put on the calendar, I don't know how many months
like 2
prior.
Months, 2 months prior.
It was more than that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh no, here we go, guys. I'm about to get in trouble.
Yeah. And we got to get these permits, and they just happened to kind of fall on that Thursday, Friday, which I was supposed to be gone.
Eddie had this 4-day getaway. So our college friends, we have a group of college buddies.
Let me tell a story.
There's like what?
I'll tell it. So all of my friends, all 2 of them.
Whatever. There's like 10 of you guys.
Basically, long story short is that it was cutting into that time. And unfortunately, I had no choice with the permits, right? We were just waiting on those things. And then if you would have ran in 10 hours, I would have been out there in time, but it took you a little longer than 10 hours. But anyways,
what do you say?
Selfishly,
slow?
No, it was, I ended up making it out there for a couple of days, so it worked out. But
his college buddies are like brothers. There are, I don't know, 10 guys, and all their wives are my friends. These are these these people become like family to us. We all got married within the same year. We all started having kids together. So we have this awesome support group from Biola University. And all the guys had this 4-day getaway in the mountains. And they were like, it was so sad because like halfway into our attempt at Mount Whitney, like they're sending pictures of them like going axe throwing and going hiking and like in the hot tub. And Eddie's like, awesome. Yeah, I had planned to do that. That was on the calendar for a long time. But instead, I'm in my truck on the side of Mount Whitney. So
no, it worked out.
It is.
So, anyway.
But this just further solidifies why Eddie is so incredible, because I felt really bad.
I know you felt bad.
And
I'm just
this is what happens sometimes. This is like a part of being married though too. Like there's like that give and take and that sacrifice. And I will admit that Eddie probably sacrifices more for me than I do him. I owe you big time for a long time, for like all eternity. There's so many things I owe him for.
This is recorded, right? We're gonna come back to that.
You're a good man, Eddie. You're a good man. So we start driving out to Lone Pine, and this was really exciting because we have just come back from Switzerland where we had that not so fun time with our rental car. We had car troubles. We are literally 5 miles from Lone Pine, and Eddie gets this alert in his truck. And he's like, what? Saying my car's overheating? This thing never overheats. It was hot. I'd say at the start, it was probably like 90 degrees when we started in Lone Pine. We roll up to Dalvilla at 9:30, and the people at Dalvilla are so awesome. They let us check in early, like 5 hours early. But I start getting my stuff together. Like I'm like really nervous. I don't think I was ever this nervous for any of the races. Somebody actually wrote in too. They're like, oh, did you do this because racing was like too overwhelming and too much pressure? And I was like, no, not at all. Like I've never felt any pressure with any of these races. Maybe part of it is just racing for so many years, but my focus was never a time or a placement in this project. That was never the focus. It was getting to the start line and moving on to the next, or getting to the finish line and then moving on to the next start line. So, but this, I think I was the most nervous because I had never been to the top of this mountain.
Yeah. You were like, had this anxious energy. I remember because as soon as we pulled into the parking lot, you kind of hopped out and you started getting your stuff ready. And as soon as you tied your shoes, got your bottles, and you're like, all right, I'm going to get going. Like take a quick video. And you're like, where are the guys at? Why come they're not here? I'm like, they didn't know we were going to park and you were just literally going to start running.
This is so true.
Like you had this like weird, like anxiousness about it. I don't know. But yeah, that I haven't seen that in all the other races leading up to that at all. Like you were way more calm, and you know, this one it was kind of funny.
Well then we get to the corner and Drew and Tyler come running out because I think Eddie alerted him. He's like, I think she's starting right now. So they're like running out with all their camera equipment. And then Drew starts filming. He asks, Drew always like prompts me with these questions like for the film because they use, you know, a lot of audio. And I look up the mountain and I'm like dressed in all yellow. And I just like,
why are you starting so quickly? Why are you so anxious?
Right? I don't know. And then I started crying. And then I'm like on film and I was like, oh my gosh, lame. Like, why am I crying? Like, why is this such a big deal? But I'll tell you what, the project, you know, I hold the stories inside me so closely. And in my mind, that story was going through my mind. I was telling the story to myself and remembering these moments, like these really, you know, that last year with my mom, but then I'm also looking up at this mountain that I've never been to the top of. And I knew Tyler and Drew had decided that one of them would go up with me for the first summit, and the other would go up with me to the second summit. And they'd never been that high, and they're bringing, you know, their big camera. And, you know, so there was a lot of stress involved and a lot of unknowns. And I really wanted to complete it. And just knowing that, you know, that this project is coming to close on a really powerful note. And I'm just praying that my body holds up, that I look up this mountain that means so much to me, that I've stared up at for years and I've done so much training on. And it just, yeah, the whole moment was very overwhelming. So I take off And I'd say about 15 minutes into my run, I get an alert from Tyler and Drew, or did you come driving up next to me? I'm trying to think how I found out that you needed to go back to Lone Pine because your truck was falling apart.
No, well, I let you go. You were up quite a bit, and
A few miles.
no, you were up farther than that because when I went up to you, I said, "Hey, my car is overheating."
Oh yeah, that was like mile 5. I
I
think
gotta-
I was like 5 miles up the road, and the road is 12 miles.
And I said, I got to go back and probably put some coolant in it. And so that's what I did. And then when I was down there, kind of checking it out, putting coolant in there, then that's when you're calling. You're like, where are you at? Like, I'm almost to the portal. Like, hurry up.
I was getting nervous. So I started and I was like, wow, my body feels really good. I didn't feel like I was like pushing really hard, but I was like, dude, I feel pretty good on this climb. And I think I got through the first 6 miles in under an hour. And I wasn't expecting that. I was giving myself, I was like, oh, I'm going to give myself 3 hours to get to the portal. I'm going to like just take care of my body, go chill, because I know I have to do this twice. And I wasn't trying to go for any type of speed record, but I was like, I'm just going to go chill. But I was moving so well. And so when I looked down at my watch, I was like, oh my gosh, also, where is Eddie? Like, I haven't seen anyone. I'm 6 miles in. And so I call him. I ran with my phone the whole time. I think a lot of pictures too. You can see that I have a battery pack in my shorts with my phone in there, which was so helpful because I had downloaded the map off Strava and it shows me where to go. So I could always see that I was like staying on track. So it was like crucial. So I had this battery, little mini portal battery. I have my phone. So I reach in for my phone and I call Eddie and he's on speakerphone and I'm running up the portal, like huffing and puffing, like, where are you? And he's like, and so that's when you said, I have to go put cool in my car. And I remember thinking after I hung up, I was like, of course, like every story we do has to have some dramatic component to it. And I just was envisioning, because Eddie had all my stuff. You had the pack, you had all my fluid, my nutrition. And I'm just envisioning that you couldn't get up to me. Well, I think you got to me at mile 9 because there was 3 miles left. And I was so happy. I was like jumping up and down, like, yes, he's here. And so we make our way to the top. And I did. I got up there faster than I think I've ever climbed up the portal. I think I did the 12 miles, 5,000 feet in I think it was like 225 or 228 maybe. I think the course record on that was like 232. I broke it by 5 minutes. So that was kind of fun because I wasn't expecting to do that, but my body was feeling good. So we set a little record there, and then Eddie pulled his truck in. We got my pack ready, and somewhere in me getting my pack ready, I forgot to shove in like a bottle or like some stash of food or something that I think was sitting on the bed of the truck. So I left up the mountain with 50% of what I was supposed to have in my pack. And I think, thinking back, it's because I had so many clothes too.
Yeah.
I had a big jacket, I had pants. Like I really, my goal always when going into the mountains is my rule of thumb. This is the best advice I can give people. Always pack in such a way that if you had to spend the night, that you would be fine. You should always have that confidence. A lot of people won't pack like that going into the mountains because they're like, it's too heavy. I don't want to carry all that stuff. I'm only going to be out there for this long. Well, nobody plans on getting stuck in a storm or twisting an ankle. Nobody plans for that. Nobody expects that. Nobody wants that. But that's how I always pack.
So the people that were at the portal, most all of them that we saw, all had massive, like 30 to 50 pound pack, like huge
packs.
One guy said it was like close to 50 when I was talking to him. So you going up, what did you have in yours? Like, what's the bare minimum that you thought, hey, if I had to spend the night up here, what was it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we knew there is water on the way too. So there's places to refill water. So I had enough I had 3 liters of water. I had a storm jacket, so like a Gore-Tex type cover, as well as a long sleeve shirt, a windbreaker, a beanie, 2 pairs of gloves, 2 headlamps with backup batteries. I had storm pants, which The Storm pants, those are like an ounce. They're
Mhm.
awesome. They're waterproof. I had several pieces, different types of food, everything from, I really like real food. So everything was like real food based. And then of course the G1M sports drinks. So the powdered drinks. And then I brought poles. This was a surprising thing. I brought poles. I'd never used my poles, but I did pack those. Poles are great on mountains, even if you're not well versed in them, in case you do twist an ankle or your quads blow out, because they kind of act as a separate, extra set of legs. So that's what I had going up. Unfortunately, I had all of those things I just told you, but I think it was like the bladder like ripped or something, like my bladder ripped. So I was like, okay, I'll bring 4 bottles then. Or like, I didn't do the math right. So I ended up shoving everything in, but it wasn't until we hit the 99 switchbacks, which Mount Whitney is really well known for, that I realized I had not packed all of my fluid in. So I went up the mountain with Tyler and Drew. Drew only stayed with us up until the point where you need a permit. And then he turned around. So he stayed with us for the first 3 miles. We had permits for everyone, for 4 people, both days. But Drew decided, hey, I'll go up at this point. I'll get some good film of you and Tyler going up. And then tomorrow I will, or your second attempt, I'll summit with you. So Tyler and I continued up. We were in great spirits. I hiked quite a bit. I'd say like the first 5 miles, I had really good energy. I think a lot of it was just enthusiasm and excitement. Taking somebody up onto that particular mountain who is not a mountain runner. Tyler and Drew both come from Texas, Austin, Texas, where it's flat. They're not in the mountains. They are both very fit though, and they're strong. And they have run some pretty gnarly stretches with me, both Leadville on Hope's Pass, in the Swiss Alps at this one particular very grueling 9-mile section. I've been so impressed by the way that they move. So I did have confidence in Tyler. Both Tyler and Drew are also very, very positive thinkers. Like I feel like we've been in situations that have been challenging, and they're always very optimistic and very helpful, and always look for a way, which I think is very powerful on the mountain as well. So Tyler was extremely positive and very excited to get up the mountain. Well, as we made our way towards the switchbacks, we also noticed, and you do get this a lot on this mountain, people they definitely take note of anyone on the trail that isn't carrying very much. And so I think there was a few times, this one guy in particular was like kind of jabbing at Tyler, like, oh, that's all you have is your big camera. Like, I respect that, but that's all you have and you're going to go summit. And Tyler and I like started giggling. And I was like, yeah, like you actually are, like, you're going to go summit with that and come back down, and we're going to pass him on the way down. So we continue up. We hit the 99 switchbacks. We're still moving really well. I'd say about halfway into the switchbacks, the weather started to change. And I was expecting this. Typically, any time of year, once you're getting above 11, 12, 13,000 feet, you're going to feel wind. It's going to be a little bit colder. And so we started putting on our layers. We stopped. And at this point, we look at each other and I say, Tyler, how much food and water do you have? And he's like, oh, I have I think he had like a Spring Energy, and he had like a fruit leather type thing. And then he had something else. I think all of his calories maybe amounted to maybe 400 calories. Oh, and he had a liquid IV. And I go, how much, do you have to drink? He had less than 1 flask of water, less than 500 milliliters of water. And I look at him and I say, I've already eaten and drank almost everything in my pack. I thought I had more in my pack than this. And I got really embarrassed because I was like, dude, we're only 8 miles into this. Well, from the trailhead, it's 11 miles straight up to the summit, and then it's 11 miles straight down. So this is mile 8 of our 22 miles into Mount Whitney. And we look at each other, we're like, dude. And we had already passed the last place that you could fill up water. And I had miscalculated and I thought there was one more spot. So I just say, you know what? We got 3 miles to the top. We are both feeling really well. We feel strong.
I didn't ask you about this, but
Yeah.
at that point, were you like, I know it's like looking back, you're like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. That was so like, why did I? But now, like thinking back to it, like, were you like nervous? Like, were you like, oh wow, we don't have like water?
Yeah. Well, there was two things that I was thinking of in that moment. One, I can't let Tyler think that I'm not going to act like it's a big deal, because in my mind, I was like, as long as we can get the climbing done, we have 3 miles to go and we both have a half a liter of water. So I knew we were both well hydrated and we had a lot of calories in us, and I had eaten a lot. So I think just over the years, I've learned that my body can go for a lot of hours without calories, but water is another thing. Like the fluid is like the dehydration. You don't mess with that. But on the way up the first time, and even in our drive, I had paid very close attention to that. So I first really focused on how we were both feeling. So I said, like, how are you feeling? He's like, dude, I feel good. I was like, all right, if we need to move well, like we need to move efficiently. And I told him that. I was like, we need to move efficiently, because once we start to descend, we can get back to that water spot and we're going to be okay. We might be a little bit dehydrated, but let's not focus on what we don't have right now, because we still have. And so in the back of my mind, though, I was like, dude, what if we start hitting like 13,000 feet and Tyler's like throwing up because of the altitude, or he starts getting dizzy, or he just starts getting sick? Like, so much changes in those last couple miles. So that was always in the back of my mind. And I knew that, because we had so little, I was a little nervous knowing I might have to abort this. I might have to like not summit if he's not doing well. And same for me. I'd never been to the top. At this point, this is the highest I climbed. So I'm telling him that as we're pausing, we're putting on our warm clothes. And I was like, by the way, I've never gone to the top. He's like, what? I was like, yeah. I go, this is literally the highest I've been up here, because I typically come up here to run. Like I do like run workouts. I try to climb fast and hard and heavy. It's always in training. And if I hit snow, my rule is that I turn around. So I usually go up on Mount Whitney in the warmer months, and I don't bring ice gear with me. So I'll bring spikes, but I don't have like an ice axe. I don't have like the helmet, to go up in the high areas that are a little bit more dangerous. So that's just always been my rule. And then outside of that, I've always raced in the warmer months. So I just have never gone up to the top when there isn't snow on the top. So not having summited, not having enough water and food for the full round trip, I was a little nervous at that point, but I did have a lot of confidence in the fact that we were both moving really well and we both felt really good. And so, I was a little embarrassed at that point too. I was like, oh my gosh. So he broke open his liquid IV and poured half of it into my flask and the other half into his. We shook that up and we just sipped on that for the next 3 miles. And then I still had like a piece of food and he had some food. So we actually made it to the top feeling good. We weren't dragging to the summit, but when we reached the top of the 99 switchbacks, that was my first time seeing the backside of Mount Whitney. And I wasn't expecting this. I just like burst into tears. Like I just started crying. I was like, it's so beautiful. This is so incredible. And it was like joy too. It was joy. It was elation. It was the sight of this beauty before me. And also being so grateful that I felt so strong. I felt like, wow, I've been climbing so well all day. And Tyler was super excited too. So we continue up. If you've never been to the backside of Mount Whitney, what I was surprised to find was there's a lot of scrambling. There's a lot of sections where you had to be very careful about footing. There's a lot of big rocks, small rocks. I mean, some of the trail, even if you look ahead like 400 meters, you can't even see a trail because there's so much broken rock and scree, and it's just so rugged up there. You can't really see a trail until you get close to that area. So there was a few times that I was like, wait, are we going the right way? Are we navigating the right way? And we'd look forward and you could see people in the distance. But, you know, that first summit, it was a big surprise to everyone that we passed on the trail because we summited at sunset. And, you know, we were really grateful because the weather was perfect. I don't think we could have asked for better weather. Typically, especially a mountain that high, you do want to summit well before sunset. You know, a lot of times as the day goes on, the weather starts to change even more. And so doing like an early afternoon summit at the latest is kind of ideal. But we summited at like 6:30, just as the sun was starting to set. We got beautiful pictures. Tyler and I celebrated. We took pictures of each other, got video. That moment was really, really powerful for me. And then we turned around and I look at him. I was like, Tyler, we got to move. Like I think we probably spent like 10, 15 minutes up there. Maybe not even that much. It was probably like 10 minutes. And then we look at each other like, all right. We had a few ounces left in our flasks. We had no food left. And I said, we got to descend now. Thankfully, on the descent, you don't use as much energy as you do climbing. So climbing, you use 1.5 times more energy than you do on a flat. And descending, we were just really depending on our bodies carrying us and getting us down to where that water was. So at this point, we had about 4.5 miles before we got to water, and it was all downhill. So we felt we were pretty confident in that. What I wasn't sure of was what that descent was going to be like in the dark. So we hit the 99 switchbacks just as it turned pitch black. And when I say pitch black, there's no civil light. There's no light pollution anywhere. It was a black blanket and just our headlamps. And so we started descending those 99 switchbacks in full darkness. And what were you doing that whole time?
Well, let's see. At that one, I was nervous because my truck, like we said, it was overheating just going with that climb up to the portal. And that's, you know, when I turned back, got the coolant, and then, you know, once I caught up to like mile 9 or whatever, still had a few miles to the portal, and I was going slow. And, you know,
I could hear your truck.
Yeah.
It was not making a good noise. I was really nervous about it.
Yeah. So I was just really nursing it and not knowing what was wrong with it. And, which was interesting too, because the coolant level was fine. And so I was like putting coolant in there, but I was like, oh, it's already full. Like something else is going on. So I was really nervous about that. And so when I went to the portal and you guys were climbing, I had to make the decision. I'm like, well, what do I do? I either go, you know, down and, you know, go sleep or go get some stuff done or whatever. Cause I knew I had like 8-10 hours or whatever, to do it. But I didn't want to risk, going down and not being able to get back up, because going down, it was okay, but going up and it really was putting stress on the truck. And so I didn't know what was wrong with it. So I didn't want to risk missing you, or because you were going to need something at that point when you came down, and I didn't know, you know, what that looked like. And so long story short is that I spent literally like, was it 9-10 hours? No, because it was 5 hours to get up to the top and then another 5 down, or 4 down. Yeah, it was like 9, almost 10 hours.
Oh, I thought it was 8.
No, I
think it was 8.
I have it written down if you want to.
Okay.
Look.
Well, all in all, the fact that you waited so long and there was no phone, there was no reception.
Very, very minimal. So I literally spent a couple of hours just kind of hiking around up there. You know, there's a waterfall and some cool, like little really mini like lakes, and you know, so I got some steps in, but it's kind of boring, to be honest, because, you know, I'm just up there and just kind of waiting. It was a wait game, you know.
And you're seeing a lot of people come off the trail too as the day goes on.
Yeah, that was fun actually, because you get to hear.
What'd you see? Because there's a lot of people listening that have Mount Whitney on their bucket list. And I will be the first to say the lottery is crazy. I think the stats are that only, I want to say it's like 18% of those that put in for the date they want get a permit. And, you know, if you live in Southern California, like I was saying, and you are close to Mount Whitney, you do kind of have the luxury of looking on the week of or 2 days before, the day of, and being able to grab those last minute permits. But people train all year to summit this. People plan for it. A lot of people do it as a multi-day attempt. So at the bottom of the switchbacks is a very popular place where people will camp out. And so the people that you saw, a lot of them were pretty weathered because they'd been on the mountain for.
Let me just pull up a quick fact check on your hour here. You got to the portal at 12:45 on Thursday.
Okay.
Okay. And I wrote that you left up to the summit at 1 p.m. So you were only there for like 15 minutes, got your water, packed your bag, and you're off. Then you got back to that portal. Well, you hit the sunrise, or sorry, sunset at like 6:15, 6:30.
Yeah, it's like 6:15, yeah.
And then I wrote back that you got down to that portal again, 10:45, 11-ish. So that was a full 10 hours.
That you were sitting up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a long time. Anyways, the cool part was, as I was sitting there, I kind of listened in on some of these conversations as people were coming down, and there's these rocks that, are kind of situated right next to that sign that says Mount Whitney Trail. And a lot of them just throughout the night, once it got dark and they were kind of coming down, they would sit there and just as this relief and but then they would wait for the other, part of their group, and then they would regroup and they would just start telling stories about, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, how far did you get? How far did you, just kind of going back and forth. It was really cool to kind of hear their story as they shared and the adventure that they just had. They probably spent, a day or maybe two. A lot of them had their big packs, so they might have camped and stuff. But that part was cool to kind of listen in on their experience and their journey. And I was just thinking too, when they're coming down with these big packs, I'm like, Sally just went up there with a pack full of a jacket. These guys have half their house. I'm like, oh, he's all right. Hope she's gonna make it. Because once I started seeing these massive packs come down, I was like, Sally knows what she's doing, because these guys are well equipped. Yeah.
At one point, Tyler and I had this really good conversation on the trail as we were climbing up, because we did pass a few people who were pretty emotional on the trail. And it was interesting because right before we had passed these few people, I had said to him, I was like, people get really emotional out here. I've been on that trail so many times, and, you pass people that attempted to summit and they couldn't, they had to be turned away because maybe that they had got altitude sickness, which is very real. I mean, if you're, barfing and you have a migraine and you're dizzy, I mean, that is not a good way to continue summiting up a mountain, especially with those last couple miles that really require your focus and good footing. You want to be able to move in a way that's safe on that trail. And so I remember passing this one guy that he started crying because it was his third time trying to summit. And he every time got so sick, and he was with his buddy. And he was just like, I don't know what it is. And, it's just so frustrating. And so I was telling Tyler about different encounters I've had on that mountain. I go, there's something about the mountain that just strips us raw. You get to these certain points, especially the higher you go, the further out you get from the trailhead, away from your car, and you realize, oh my gosh, I am so far away. This is a rugged, I'm alone. I am far from any help or anything. And I think it makes people feel really vulnerable. It makes people feel very small. It makes people question their own physical abilities and what they're capable of doing. And it was really interesting because we passed a few people on our way up right after that conversation. One woman in particular, asked us, are you guys summiting right now? I was like, yeah. And she just started crying. She's like, we'll be on the lookout for my husband. I had to turn around early. He's probably 5 hours behind me. He's going up to summit and I just couldn't make it. And, she just starts crying, and I just say, tell me your name. And I whip out my phone and I write down her name in my notes app. I get her phone number and I write down her husband's name. And so Tyler and I start looking for her husband, and And then we met somebody else, higher up on the mountain that was moving pretty slowly. And she decided to drop her pack in the middle. Like she wasn't really like thinking properly. She decided just to like leave her pack on the middle of the trail and keep walking. So then we kind of like helped her back to find her pack. And she said, can you help me find my pack? And so, it's just really interesting as, you move in these desolate places, these places that kind of make you feel vulnerable and raw. There's a lot that is brought out in you, but I also think this is another reason why people find some of their best friends in ultra running, because when you have these really intense life experiences, you also understand that you don't have those experiences every day. And, when you get to that feeling of being vulnerable and really being challenged, it impacts you. It impacts you for the rest of your life. And I feel like that happens a lot in ultra running, whether you're out on a long training run with friends where you're not doing well and they have to come alongside you and help you get back to the trail, or you're having a bad race and, you have friends that have to kind of like nurse you back to life or encourage you mentally in order to move forward. Those people become really precious to you. And when you parallel those moments in our everyday life, it's like, well, your closest friends and family are people that are like that for you in your everyday life. The people that are there for your moments of weakness and when you're going through a challenge and when you feel alone and when you feel raw. And those are your best friends. Those are your people. That's your circle of people that you really trust. And so it's really amazing being out on the Mount Whitney mountain because you're with people who have dreamed of summiting, and everyone is doing something that's very hard. That was not easy, for me to do. I did not feel strong after the descent. So it was good going up to that top. But then as we started to descend, Tyler and I both did start to feel pretty sick. I think we could have descended a little bit faster, but I think after we found water, that's all that we were having. And I was pretty sick then when I got back to you, and descended back into Lone Pine, which we'll talk about the reset here in just a second. But when we decided to go back up the second time, I don't think I had a single step where I felt good. I think I had a single step where I was, feeling strong. And so being on the mountain with a lot of people who are feeling like that and still pushing forward, it is so inspiring, so incredibly inspiring. But I know that seeing your light at the truck, it was the best sight ever. I mean, seeing the truck and seeing you standing there as Tyler and I came off the trail that after that first summit was amazing.
That was so again, we had no cell reception. So I had no idea like how quick you were going to do this. I had I had no idea how long it was going to take. And so the funny thing is, as soon as it hit like 7:00, it's pitch black, right? 7:30, it was like pitch black. And at that point I was like, okay, if we're trying to do the math, like if she's going to come down quicker than she was going up, it could be right around this time. And so, we put the tailgate down and Drew and I are just kind of waiting. And that's when we were able to see these people coming down and listening, to their stories. And some people that were really mad about their packs. Oh yeah. This one guy, I would always tell them, man, congrats. Good. Great job. Like summiting, whatever, like how'd that go? And I asked this one guy, I go, man, how'd that go? Congrats, man. He goes, let me tell you in 1 minute, as soon as I take off this, he used some choice words about his pack. And he threw his pack down. He's like, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And just really starts going off. But yeah, that pack was not his friend. So anyways, once it was pitch black, we were kind of waiting. And at that point, we can only see, the headlamps that we're like, okay, we're looking for 2 headlamps. If we see 2 lights, then we know that they're coming. And we were doing that for a long time. And then it got really cold. And I'm like, Drew, I'm sorry, but I'm going in the truck. I'm going to just wait. So what I was doing is I was looking in my mirror that was angled up towards the mountain. So I could kind of see, and I'm getting tired at this point too. So I'm like,
you think?
looking through at the mirror to see it reflect, to see if these lights are good. So every time I would see like a couple lights, I'd jump out the truck and like, but have to wait like 5 minutes by the time they finally got down because I didn't want to miss you guys. And it was, nope, not them. All right, go back in the truck. So I did that literally for like 2 hours, like jumping back and forth because I just didn't know like how long it was going to take you guys. But yeah, that was fun. So the one thing, they had a little like shop in there, like at the portal.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's great. It's this little restaurant, little store right there at Mount Whitney Trailhead. It's awesome. Right there in the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, because I couldn't go down with the truck. So I stayed up there, obviously, because I didn't want to risk it. And I knew it was going to be night and you just summited, you're coming down, you're going to be hungry. And I had the ramen and I'm like, oh man, I got to get water for it. I got to get hot water for it. So I went in there. And this was before they closed at 7. So I had to get in there before that. And they thankfully had a hot water station that people were getting like coffee and hot chocolate and stuff. And so I was able to fill up, that insulated thermos that I brought. And I think that was a lifesaver for you and Tyler, because I was able to fill 2 ramen bowls and try to time it where you guys were coming down and where you guys were able to eat that. But yeah, that was good timing for the hot water.
I feel like you've become a pro at knowing what I need since the beginning of, and I don't know if our listeners know this, Eddie hasn't really ever crewed me or paced me or done any of this over the years, like in my career. A lot of times, especially as a teacher, I was, and I usually race around the world. Most of my races over in my career have been, all over on different continents, rarely racing in the United States. And so, Eddie hasn't really had the chance to accompany me, especially with our kids. So he's usually stayed back to support in that way. And so last year, Badwater 135, 2021, was the first time that you were out there for a full stretch. I mean, what a way to be introduced to crewing and pacing at Badwater. I mean,
and
that was gnarly.
And you won. So I'm pretty sure it was a big deal.
Yes, because Eddie crewed and
pace
paced me. He is my lucky charm. Is that what you're trying to say? You are my lucky charm.
In a roundabout way, yes.
And so the project, doing all of these things, I mean, essentially we did 6 attempts. We had 4 races, and then we had 2, I guess we'll call them mini projects within the project. And, Eddie's been there for every single one, every step of the way. But I feel like you've gotten really good at knowing what I need, because in hindsight, especially after the last couple races, I was like, wow, I'm so glad that you made me eat that, or that you made me put that on, because as you know, the further I get into the miles, my brain goes mush, and I'll argue with Eddie. I'll be like, no, leave me alone. I don't need it. I don't want that. I don't need it.
Yeah. What I've found out over these past 6, races, projects here in this main project is that you want something hot kind of later in the race, which ramen, you do well with ramen.
I do. And we're just talking like cup of noodles, you guys, noodles, like nothing fancy.
Potatoes, right? Like that's something late in the race that's usually a good thing.
Yeah, potatoes. I love the mashed potatoes too.
And you're pretty simple. I mean, just like a banana, an avocado, I think are really, staples for you.
Those are the staples, huh? Avocado, banana, and noodles. And those are good. I mean, those are packed with good carbs, fat, nutrients.
And I usually found that around mile 60-ish in all of these, that's when if you're going to go south, that was when you were going south. Like,
this is true.
You're tired. Your legs are getting, beat up.
I'm not talking,
you don't
logically.
You don't want certain things that I know you need.
I might be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
I might talk to him unkindly.
Well, it's funny because when I was I can't remember what mile it was, after mile 60, Tyler and I, coming down from the Portal Road, you were making trying to make some decisions, like big decisions. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And I just agreed, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And then I told Tyler, I go, dude, she is not allowed to make decisions after mile 60 because her
This
brain,
is so true.
emotion, it's all out of whack.
This is
Not
why he's my
acceptable.
crew chief, because I can actually trust that in Eddie. And that is the joy of having my husband as my crew chief, because you've known me forever. And even in college, I mean, I was working 2 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night when I was in college. And I took that very bad habit into our first years married. And I remember specifically, like when our first years married, I was still working 2 jobs. I was a teacher and I was working at Victoria's Secret and at a restaurant.
Right.
And I was beginning to train. That's when I really started endurance running too. And I remember several times Eddie literally grabbing me by the hand and tucking me into bed because I had such a hard time taking care of myself and resting and doing all that. So Eddie has been on this journey with me over the years, where just in my everyday life, he's like, you need to take care of yourself. I don't rest as well as he does. And, recovery has been a big thing to me, especially in the last, 5-6 years, is really desiring to have longevity in the sport, to stay injury free and to keep doing big things. I've learned I have to rest. So having you, Eddie, understand not even just like, how I do in ultras, but you actually do understand my pathway of thinking. You see how I try to convince myself that I can keep going, or like, this is a good idea. And so often I dig myself into a hole. So Eddie does a good job of not letting me get into a hole. I think several times, I want to say the last 3 races, there was, an instance where I didn't want to eat or I didn't want to change into warm clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't let me leave the aid station.
Yeah. I knew, I think the first time you did it, I can't remember what race it was.
I think it was Leadville.
Was it? Yeah, where you changed, and it was just it was a game changer. It was something that clicked for you. You had this extra kind of bit of energy.
I think actually it was AC 100. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what I've learned that was helpful for you. And then you kind of having these short resets of, whether it be 20 minutes or an hour, just it got a little longer as the project went on. But at first it was like 10 minutes, like, hey, let's just reset, take a little breather, a nap or whatever, or turn into 20 minutes later. But those were really helpful. And I don't think those would be as, you wouldn't entertain those, I don't think, if you were like in the heat of a race, but because of the project and you were just trying to get through them, I think doing those really elongated your, chances of, finishing and finishing well.
Yeah. And I think that's good advice for anyone that's listening. For those of you that do endurance sports, whether it's stage racing, Ironman, ultras, or you're looking to do like these through hiking type journeys, what I was learning, and I knew this going in. When we started the project, we did Badwater 135. Now, mind you, when I did Badwater 135 in 2021, I took the rest of the year off. I didn't race again. And I was the reason why is because I had trained so hard in the lead up to that race. And, I did, my body broke down quite a bit in the middle of the race because I was struggling with pretty gnarly intestinal issues. So my body was so depleted and I was still trying to push it to its max. So I knew that my recovery would be crucial. So when we did Badwater this year, I was kind of having flashbacks of, oh my gosh, I remember how long it took me to recover from Badwater. And now I'm going to go race 2 weeks after. I'm going to go do AC 100 and then I'm going to go to Leadville and all that. So I had to really humble myself and put my pride away and say, hey, if you're going to get to the end of the project, you have to recover inside the races. Mm-hmm. I have to be patient. I have to slow down. I need to not get so caught up in time or how I'm moving or placement. I had to commit to that and be okay with, all right, I'm going to sit here for 30 minutes and try and eat. Because as the races went on, I continued to feel the cumulative effect, the tiredness. And so moving on here, seeing you as we descended, getting that soup in, I felt I was awake. This was great because we got back. I drank a bunch of Coke. I had some ramen. That's another thing too. Coke is just like this magic liquid that, we don't buy that. It's not in our house, but I do like to drink it because it's quick sugar. I love the carbonation. I love the caffeine.
Yeah, you drink a lot of Coke the last few races here in this project, and also a nitro brew is always
nitro
helpful.
brew. Yeah, that was big too. Yeah, just the canned, no sugar, unsweetened nitro brew. I think it was Starbucks is kind of the one that I was always going to because you can find it anywhere. You can find it at gas stations.
It always gave you a nice kick when you were tired. And
yes.
Kind of down.
Yeah, that was good. So I then started to descend down Mount Whitney Portal Road. Now, remember what I had said earlier, not a lot of traffic on this road. It's pitch black. There isn't like street lamps or anything on this road. So Eddie, made sure that I had blinky lights on. I had a reflectors vest. I wore 2 headlamps actually. And then he just followed me in his truck. And it's great because the I'd say 80% of that road, there's so many places to turn off. And so if we saw a car in the distance, he could easily, go into a pull off and just wait there till the car passed and then get back and start following me. And then I just felt safe too. I think when we got back down to Lone Pine, it was like 1 a.m, I believe.
It's 1:30.
1:30. And I'll be honest, like I was pretty awake, but looking at the crew and I as I ran down the Portal Road is when Eddie told me, I go, did you go back and sleep? I was like so hoping that he had slept. He's like, no. I was like, what? And that's when he shared with me that he'd been waiting on the mountain the entire time. So typically Eddie does not sleep or rest. I think sometimes people picture Eddie like waiting these aid stations with his feet up, but Tyler and Drew let me know all the time that he paces a lot, that he worries about me, and he always wants to make sure he doesn't miss me. And just like he's shared earlier, he hops in and out of his truck, making sure that, checking to see if I'm there. So knowing that now Eddie has not slept at all and has just been waiting and wanting to care for me. And then same with Drew. Drew hadn't slept either. And then, of course, Tyler had just did like the biggest effort on a mountain that he's ever done in his life. And I think this is the one part that was probably good that it wasn't a race because we knew, okay, well, we're not fighting cutoff times. There's no rules about how long we can kind of like sit and wait. We decided to do a longer reset. I also, I had a little bit of nausea. I wanted to get more food in. And so we took a couple hours down at Dow Villa Motel. I think I had already changed up on the mountain. And so we pretty much just turned back around. I think around 4:00 in the morning, we started getting everything ready again. Eddie brought me some more soup, avocado. I got in some really good food. And the goal for the second attempt, I knew I would not climb as fast as I did the first one. The goal was just to eat and drink as much as possible. In fact, there's a really funny picture, a couple funny pictures of Eddie running at me with a gallon of water. Because I think at one point I had run to his truck and I just like grabbed this gallon of water and I was just drinking as much as I could. So he started running that to me, like trying to get as much liquid in me. I think I ate a whole banana. I had some avocado. I had some fruit. Yeah, we ate and drank a lot. I had some G1M, a couple bottles of that on the way up. So by the time I hit the trailhead for the second time, I had a lot of calories in me. But I did not feel strong. Like I was tired. I did not really sleep during that reset. I tried to lay down, but I had so much on my mind. I was really looking forward to getting back on the Mount Whitney Portal Road and begin that second ascent. We wanted to get that second summit in under 24 hours, which we ended up doing. I believe we did 2 summits within 21 hours. I think was what it came out to, maybe 20 and a half. But Drew then started up with me. So Tyler stayed back with Eddie for this for the second attempt. Drew and I began going up, and I noticed within the first 400 meters of getting on the trail that my heart rate and my breathing was far more laborious than it was the first time. So I'd say that just on the way up, I probably sat on a rock maybe 12 or 13 times. I'd sit on a rock for like 60 seconds to 2 minutes. I'd catch my breath, and then we keep climbing again. And I think it was a mix of like being in altitude for that long. I do struggle breathing the longer that I'm in altitude. Just the breathing in and breathing out becomes a little bit harder for me. But then I also knew I was just tired. You know, it was overall fatigue. It was not sleeping. And so, and I had been in altitude the whole time. So Lone Pine sits at just under 4,000 feet. And then we're going up to, it's like 3,000. Actually, it's like 3,200 feet, I think, that Lone Pine sits at. So we're going up to over 14,000 feet. So, you know, this was not a, you know, an easy task on the body, you know, even if you are rested, like you're really feeling the effects of the altitude. So as we got higher, I really struggled. And sometimes what the altitude does, the longer I'm in it, it just makes me tired. I think it's just that lack of oxygen. My body starts to feel tired. So Drew and I summited, and we had way more food and drink. We were very well stocked this next time. But we summited, celebrated. The look on Drew's face when we summited was so sweet. He was so excited to get to the top. I think he was a little nervous the night before about going up. Same as Tyler, had never been up that high. He was also carrying camera equipment. And this is the longest attempt he'd ever had on a mountain, which consequently was the biggest mountain. And so it was a time of triumph for both of us. Hitting that second summit was just, I couldn't believe it. And we also hit it, I want to say it was like, be like around 2 or 3 o'clock when we hit it. So we got up there a lot earlier than we did with, when I went up with Tyler. About a mile down from the summit, I started falling asleep while I was running. And this is not an area on the mountain that you want to be involuntarily falling asleep. It's very, very technical. It's very rocky. A lot of places you can twist your ankle. There's some slim ridges, some sections that are just a little sketchy. And so Drew later on told me, he's like, yeah, dude, I noticed you kept on like pausing and staring down at the trail. And then you would kind of like find your balance again, and then you do it again. I didn't know what was going on, but I was actually falling asleep, like literally closing my eyes and then being jolted awake as I took another step. So I sat down on a rock. I looked up at Drew and I said, I have to sleep right now. And later on, he told me that I slept for 5 minutes. I dropped my head onto my arms. I don't even remember falling asleep. That's how fast I fell asleep. I was out. And when I woke up after those 5 minutes, I felt like I had slept for like an hour. It was so great. So that really did help me. I just needed that quick little reset. So we descended a little bit I think our round trip was just a little bit faster than it was with Tyler. And when we got back to the trailhead, same thing. Eddie had Coke and ramen waiting for us. We celebrated Drew's, summit to the top. And then I think at this point too, I knew, wow, this is it. Like we only have 12 miles to go down the road, and then we're done. So I think I sat at that trailhead eating and drinking because I was not in a good place. My body was very beat up here. I sat there for almost an hour. I changed my clothes. I ate, had a chat with Eddie, and then we continued down the mountain. And it was about 11 o'clock at night when, Main Street and Lone Pine came into view, and I hit mile 92 and ran straight into your arms.
Yep.
And said, we did it. We did this attempt. So stats for those of you that are wondering. So this was, this took me, was it 36 hours, I believe? It's on Strava. So you can go and look on Strava. Yeah. I will say, all competitiveness aside, it is pretty awesome to have a Strava profile that no one else on the planet has right now, which is super cool. And that is the profile from Lone Pine, California, running straight up to Mount Whitney, back down to Lone Pine, turning around, going back up to Mount Whitney, back down to Lone Pine. So it is a 92-mile round trip. And then it is 22,047 feet of climbing. And if you would like to try this, I love that we were able to put it on the map. Some people ask me, did you submit it, for an FKT? I mean, obviously it's the fastest known time for men and women because no one else has ever done it before, but we were not going for that. All I really cared about was getting up to the summit twice. So even the descents on both sides were pretty slow. Having camera people with me too, and people that are not experienced in the mountains, I'll be honest, I did take my time. I was very aware of both Tyler and Drew with me. But also I was really tired. This wasn't something that I didn't train specifically just for this attempt. My body was not rested. I was not considerably strong to do this, but I will say it would be a super fun route. I don't know if super fun, I shouldn't say that. It would be a challenging, interesting route to see how fast I could do it. It would be really cool to see other people attempt this route because it's beautiful and brutal on various levels. Because on one hand, you have to understand that half of the route is on road, and then the other half is in the mountains. The whole thing's at altitude, and there's a lot of ruggedness about this route. So you got to be well prepared. You got to carry a lot of good stuff in your pack. You got to be okay with high altitude. I mean, there's a lot that is going on. I would also highly recommend having some type of crew person with you, at least for the road sections, that they can help you as far as making sure that you are feeling good, that you have good nutrition and hydration before you hit that mountain section. So you can check out the stats on Strava. You can check out the route right there on Strava. And so that's it for that attempt. I think before we wrap this up, I do want to talk a little bit about mindset, because I know, Eddie, you've been getting a lot of messages coming your way. You and I are reading the messages and the emails from people every single day, those that have been following the Choose Strong Project, but those that are just keeping up with our podcast. And we have found that a lot of people have been encouraged by the stories that we have shared. People have been using what they're learning here in the podcast. They've been applying it to the challenges, the goals, and really just working through things in their own lives. And it's been amazing to hear how people have been choosing strong in their own way. But one of the things that we have continued to see in these messages is a lot of questions that pertain to the mindset, that pertain to how do you keep going? What is it that needs to be done in order to get to that place that even when I'm in discomfort, how do I keep going? And again, this is not just talking about running. This is, I've always said the Choose Strong Project was really about telling you a story. This wasn't about look at my buckles, look at, what place I finished, look at how awesome I am doing these races. This is not what it was about. The whole project itself was supposed to be hard for me. It was supposed to represent a hard story of my life. It was supposed to represent a time in my life that I didn't necessarily think that I could get through, a time in my life that I actually didn't always want to walk through or even continue on. And so the races collectively, the way that I put them close together, the way that I selected them in their harshness, Leadville with its extreme altitude, Badwater with its heat and its distance, and then putting the races together and knowing that with each race, I was feeling the fatigue and really being weighed down as the miles clicked on, was all part of the story, to parallel a story that is far greater than any of these things that I did that involved running, because the story itself is something that I know many of you can relate to. And there's so many pieces of the story that maybe if you don't relate to it today, you will later on in your life. And so I just really hope to get this story out there to encourage other people that we are so much more capable than we think we are. Choosing to double on Mount Whitney from Lone Pine wasn't something that I was confident in because I hadn't done it before. And I think so often we deter ourselves from trying something because we don't know how it's going to turn out, or we've never done it before. And so often we stick to what's comfortable. So often we stick to only what we know, or we stick to what we can control and what's predictable. But I'll tell you what, that is not how your life is meant to be lived. If it was, and you would have been born with a life manual that laid out how your life was going to be lived from beginning to end. And you could turn the pages in your book and it would be, chapter 12, this is what's going to happen to you this year. Chapter 13, this is what's going to happen this year. But that isn't how life goes for anyone. Life was meant to be lived stepping forward into the great unknown every single day. And to be going after the things in your life that excite you, the things in your life that you know that you are meant to do, the things in your life that scare you. There's so many seasons in our life. Sometimes we're in these awesome, great seasons where everything's going well and things are lining up. And it's just like, we can celebrate those seasons. That's a beautiful part of life. But then you hit other times in your life where I don't think I can get back up that mountain. I climbed it once and it was hard. And now I have to start all over again. I mean, I think of the stories that people have told me where, it's a relationship that fell apart that they never thought was going to fall apart. It's a job that was lost that they never thought that they were going to lose, or a home or a family or whatever it is, or a person that they love. And it's like, this was not supposed to be part of my story. I didn't plan for that. In a more simpler way, I talk to athletes every day all over the world who say, I trained for this race for 7 months. I didn't know that I was going to roll my ankle a week before the race. This is not fair. Like, this is so hard for me to come to grips with. I wasn't expecting this. And it's like, was all of that training a waste? Was everything that I put into that, the time away from family and friends, the money that I invested, the dreaming that went into it, and now I can't even go to the start line. Like, how am I supposed to move on from that? And I empathize on every level, whether it's in running or it's in life. The strength in order to begin again sometimes is very hard to find, but do not doubt that strength is in you. It has nothing to do with how you feel physically. You don't have to be the strongest one in the room. You don't have to have muscles popping out of your arms. And you don't even need to say, at the first chance that, yeah, I'm strong enough. Let's go. Like, sometimes it takes time to find that strength. And sometimes it begins with just getting up each day and putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, essentially, that's how we gain strength in anything. When I talk to people about building a strength program, or if you go into my app and you see all these different strength workouts, there is a spot that says start here. And it's an assessment. It's a strength assessment that I give you. I ask you to do all these exercises. And guess what? None of them involve weights. And some people are confused by that. And I say, well, you know what? If you can't even lift your own body, if you can't lift and push and pull and stand with your own body weight, why would I put weights in your hands? Let's first start from the bottom. Let's first start by strengthening who you are. And the very basics of strength training, the very basics of strength training is being able to lift your own body and to move your own body with that confidence and that stability and that control. Then we put weights in our hands. And that is how you build strength. It's day by day. And strength, it demands your patience. If you look at bodybuilders, they weren't born that way and they didn't get those big giant muscles just overnight. It's years and years and years of building. And so when I talk about choosing strength, that isn't just, oh yeah, it's easy, just be strong. It's every day do something little that allows you to step forward and to be a stronger version of who you are. It's so easy to stay in our comfort zone. It's so easy to complain. I'll tell you what, I've been there. I've been in those seasons where I just complain over and over again. And I let everyone know what my struggles are. And I let everyone around me, maybe it's just my family, know all the things that I'm dealing with and why life is so hard. I've been there so many times. but that doesn't accomplish anything. Moving forward is embracing the challenge, knowing like, yeah, this is hard and I'm still going to move forward. This double summit on Mount Whitney represented that. It represented the end of my mom's life. There is a story actually that I wrote about in the book that I'm currently editing and hopefully releasing soon. But I talk about when I was 16 years old, and it was me watching the transition from her being able to walk and then being confined to a wheelchair. And it was just in the last few months of her life, and how that was difficult for both of us in two different ways. Because one particular instance was when she had called out to me from the other room, asking me to help her push her wheelchair into the bathroom. And I then had to, as a 16-year-old girl, lift her out of the wheelchair and then put her on the toilet and then put her back. And the heartbreak in all of that, the heartbreak as a mother, knowing like, I'm never going to move on from this. I'm actually not going to get stronger. My body's actually going to deteriorate. And for me as a 16-year-old girl, realizing like my mama who used to change my diaper and who potty trained me, like I literally am now the one putting her on the toilet. And there was no words that I could say to comfort her. There wasn't, don't worry, you're going to be okay. Like, don't worry, you're going to get better. You're going to get stronger. You're going to grow from this. No, the great transition in my life in that moment was like, she's not going to get better. She isn't going to get stronger. But for my mom, the strength that she had was to still live each day to the fullest and show up mentally and physically as best she could. And she did that up until the day that she passed away. So the summit on Mount Whitney represented that massive struggle of, I'm going to turn around and run back up this mountain, and I just feel weak. I'm not going to gain strength. I'm not going to get stronger. I'm not going to feel better and be faster going up this summit for the second time. I mean, this is another, 46-mile round trip. I've already run 46 miles. I got to go back up and come back down. And I just feel weaker with every single step. But the goal wasn't to be the strongest and the fastest out there. The goal was just to get to the finish line as best as I could. And I know that that is what my mom did. She got to that finish line, the finish line of her life. I believe that we have one finish line in life, and that is the end of our life. And the goal is to get there as best you can, to live your life courageously, as full as you possibly can, as best as you can, in the only way that you can. No one can live your life for you. No one can go after your dreams for you. No one can make the decisions and have the conversations for you. That is you. That is your one life. And at the end of your life, hopefully you look back and you're proud of yourself for trying, because a life filled with trying is so much better than a life that was too afraid to try at all. A life filled with lots of failures and challenges and setbacks and heartache is a life that was lived, because you can't have failures and setbacks and heartaches unless you're trying. And so I want to encourage you guys, this double summit on Mount Whitney was for you. I wanted to send a message to you that even when we feel weak physically and mentally, we do have strength inside us to start again. And so I know that even if there's one person that needs to hear this, that feels like they're at a point in their life where they have to start all over again, after working so hard for something, after putting your whole life into something, or a whole season or a set amount of months into something that you dreamed of or that you worked so hard for, and it was either taken from you or it failed, or you're just experiencing this big setback, I want to encourage you to begin again, because you're going to learn a lot in beginning again. You're going to see how strong you are in beginning again. And I'll tell you, it's worth it, because life was meant to be lived forward. Your life wasn't meant to be smooth and perfect, but you are meant to live a full life, and a full life endures all the seasons. Eddie and I want to thank you so much for being here today with us. I do want to close with a very common question. I know that Eddie, people have been asking you, and that is whether or not I'm going to join you for your half marathon coming up here in 4 weeks, 3 weeks.
I was going to ask you the same question. That's right. Yeah. No, I've been getting that a lot. So you do have an entry because back in the day when I signed up for it, you signed up for it too.
Yeah.
So you do have a bib number. And you know what? The last half, I think I've told this story before.
I don't know.
I
think you told Drew and Tyler. I know where we're going with
maybe
this.
That's who I told it to. The only half marathon that I've ran with you, right? I've only run one with you.
I mean, me and the kids have always been out of them, but I've only that one.
You,
yeah,
literally. Okay.
Yeah, just the one in San Diego, the Christmas Santa half marathon.
The Christmas Santa. That was the most miserable
Come
half
on.
marathon that I've ever.
This was a romantic getaway that we had in San Diego. It was like one of my favorite getaways.
It was a fun weekend to get away with you, but the 2-hour half marathon was the most miserable time of my life, and here's why.
I was dressed in a Mrs. Santa Claus outfit. I had on a cute little red skirt and red running shorts. I was adorable.
That has nothing to do with why I was miserable for me.
You had like hot wife on your arm, like for that whole race.
It was miserable because I'm running. I could barely breathe. I did not train, obviously, for it very well. And so I'm running and you want to talk. And you're expecting me to talk, and I'm not talking because I'm trying to catch my breath. And you're running backwards, talking to me. You're taking pictures. You're saying hi to people, and I'm literally like.
I was playing Christmas music too on my phone.
It was very.
I was like singing White Christmas to him.
I mean, this sounds bad. It was very annoying. I'm just gonna say. It was a rough 2 hours.
You're just jealous because I could take full breaths and you could.
That is probably it. You're probably right. Anyways, so I have two choices if you're going to run it with me. I either have to get my butt in gear and actually train for it.
Which he has been doing, people. He has been.
Time is running out. And the second thing is I'm going to get some really, really good headphones.
So he doesn't have to hear me.
Those are my two options.
I love it. Yeah, Eddie has been training. Eddie has run more half marathons than I have. That is his distance of choice. Since I've known him, he loves to work out. He loves to lift weights, and he's always on some fitness regimen. I mean, for a long time, it was P90X, people. I mean, that was his jam.
I think my
P90X.
goal in all of that I've always done is just, I don't want to be fat. That's my goal. If I can just not be fat, I don't have any huge aspirations of.
I don't care what size you are. I love you all the same. You're still Eddie James McCrae, and regardless of your size, we're still doing half marathons forever and always until we're old and gray. We are going to be crossing finish lines together because it's so fun. It's like every time you go and do a half marathon or I do a race, it's this little mini adventure, and we always have stories to share. So typically he's doing a lot of half marathons that are right here in our neighborhood cities. So he does the Surf City half. He does the OC Marathon.
Here's what I do. Here's how I choose. And I've got two other ones this year, and every single one of them are on the coast. They have great weather. I can see the beach the whole time.
This is so true.
Yes, I got the one in Malibu on PCH, literally on the water. La Jolla, same thing. Mm-hmm. You can see the water. That's just.
My husband has to be near water. The one time we did not live by water was when we lived in Washington, D.C. I think there was a little creek or stream maybe. And then we would have to go find lakes to walk around or whatever. But Eddie loves waterfalls. And then when we moved to Bend, the only way that we moved to Bend was he had to be on the Deschutes River. So our little house that we have up there is right there on the Deschutes. But I would say it is a rare day that you are not at the beach, whether you're riding your bike, you're running, or just driving down the coast. We live just about a mile from the coast. And yeah, I think that is your happy place. If you can be by the water, you are just the happiest person ever. So I'm just going to put this out there because people are always like, how in the world are you a mountain runner when you live at the beach? Well, I like to keep my family happy. My family's very happy by the water. Eddie's very happy by the water. And we live in a place where I can get to a 10,000 foot mountain within about 45, 50 minutes and also be at the ocean within the same afternoon. So we are very grateful to be here. And I'm very grateful Eddie has so many races that he can choose from here in SoCal that are on the coast because the Malibu half marathon is on the coast.
That's right.
And that will be happening. So we did have a handful of people reach out who knew what the race schedule was, the original fake schedule. And so they signed up for the Malibu Half Marathon. Just so you know, I've always intended to do that one. I am not going to Puerto Vallarta. I was hoping to do Puerto Vallarta, but I'll tell you what, the state of my body right now, it needs rest. And so I'm not going to do an international travel in a 100-mile race because I do need to have some rest after that nice massive project. But I do want to just celebrate for a quick second you, Eddie, for completing the Choose Strong project, for being the most incredible crew chief, support, and just tireless leader out there. I couldn't have done it without you. And I really mean that. And you have that smirk on your face right now, because I know you're going to say something yes, you are. So he'll put himself down or something like that, or he'll try to make a joke because he does not like being complimented. In fact, that's how I started my post today on Instagram. I said, he's not going to like this, but I'm going to do a little brag on Eddie. Look at even his, I'm a communication studies major, so let's go ahead and just analyze his nonverbal cues right now. He's very uncomfortable, and I love it. We balance each other out so well. I'm like, you can just tell me all day how great I am. Really quick before we end, because we are ending right now, and you have endured with us for almost 2 hours. I just want to say thank you so much. You're awesome. The Choose Strong project will continue, and we'd invite you to keep up with both our Instagram, the Choose Strong podcast, and of course, Yellow Runner Instagram, to learn about how you can get involved, how you can create your own Choose Strong project and share that with us. But we do have some exciting news to unfold as far as the film goes on this whole project and the 6 events that we did within the project. We are hoping to see a film roll out at the beginning of sometime in early 2023. It's going to be awesome. And we just want to give a huge shout out to Drew Darby and Tyler McCain for their tireless, creative, talented work. Make sure you guys follow them on Instagram, because they are continuing to roll out some pictures and stuff like that on their Instagrams. And also, if you are looking to support us and our work as we move forward, we invite you to download our app, or you can support our podcast here directly as a monthly supporter. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to joining you again, either on your run, on the bike, in the car, wherever you are. And for those of you that are here on YouTube watching us, thank you. We love you guys. Keep choosing strong.